it's Kim again. So this is part 14 of the JFK Files. I'm trying to get comfortable here. I have this little old dog, so I have to kind of stay in the room with her sometimes. Sometimes I can go in my office and work, but sometimes I just come sit on the bed with her. But anyway, like I said, this is part 14 of the JFK documents. This is April 24th, 1970, and it says memorandum for the record. Subject to meeting with W.U. Slab/1 on 22nd of April, 1970. Arrangements and security. The meeting took place in the office safe house at 1400 on the above date and ended at 1500. There were no incidents of a security nature. Production. Bolivian ambassador Julio Sanginas Goitia talked on the phone to President Ovando on 20th of April. Ovando said that there was pressure from the civilian members of the cabinet on the Debray case. They related their request that the Debray should be released to a letter Ovando wrote. The Italian novelist Alberto Moravia, which they claimed stated he would release Debray. Ovando commented to Sanginas that he had not committed himself to release Debray. The civilians think that the release of Debray and Bustos would take the pressure off the government. Ovando admitted that the government could not control the students. The Minister of Education had been destroyed when the USIS installation was damaged. Ovando commented that he would reconsider the Debray situation and commented that there were no legal precedents for Debray's release. The military will go along with it if Ovando and the cabinet will put down the union members if needed. Marcelo Quiroga still claims to be able to influence a segment of the mine workers. Ovando does not want to suppress by force the student demonstrations. Ovando indicated that there is a wave of uneasiness in the country. He's thinking about taking a stronger hand in certain issues and compromise on other issues. Minister of Planning, Jose Ortiz Mercado, is coming to Washington on 2nd of May for a 4-day visit before he goes to San Jose for the inauguration of Pepe Figueres. W.U. Slab/1 believes that Ortiz will be frank with him and tell him what the situation is like back in La Paz. He will attend the CIAP review of the Bolivian program. Sanginas described the Rogelio Miranda Valdivia problem. Miranda is the Army Chief of Staff in Bolivia as a personal matter, which has now become ideological. He does not get along with General Juan Jose Torres, the commander of the armed forces. Miranda is now trying to change some commanders in field commands. I asked some clarifying questions on the OAS report of a possible demonstration against the OAS assembly in Santo Domingo in June of 1970. He said that Rolls Bennett normally maintains contact with the OAS Deputy Secretary General Urquia, something like that, who is a close personal friend and is also a Central American. The head of the UNDP office in Santo Domingo is Hugo Navegas. He has been asked to get the information on the possibility of such a disruption. Victor Paz Estensoro is one of 3 experts picked up under an OAS contract with the University of Engineering in Lima. In actuality, Paz will receive a P4 salary from the OAS. The project is up for board approval and will last a year. WU slab/1 went on at length on the difficulties between Miss Alexander, the former Bolivian ambassador to the OAS, whose parents were murdered in La Paz and San Ginés. In brief, Miss Alexander was accompanied to Washington by a Catholic priest, Father Eduardo. San Ginés offered to find him lodging in a Washington monastery, but he demurred. Whenever San Ginés called Miss Alexander during crises in Bolivia at early morning hours, the father would answer the phone. He also helped with Miss Alexander's work at the OAS and was around the embassy office. San Ginés once found them doing some research in his files. Colonel Banzer, when assigned to Washington, said that there was an intelligence report that Father Eduardo had been involved with the guerrillas. The military finally forced the father to leave the embassy. Miss Alexander sent him $100 on which to live. When her parents were killed, he reappeared. When Miss Alexander returned to La Paz, she read a written report submitted by San Ginés on her affair with the priest. And when she came back to Washington, she called up San Ginés and told him off. San Ginés said that his relations with the State Department have cooled off. He thinks that the nationalization of Gulf oil was weak or has weakened the government. There is a vacuum in Bolivia, and this has caused the present Bolivian government to be much more subservient to the United States than was the government of Rene Barrientos. He believes, however, that his own position with the Bolivian government had been strengthened. San Ginés is going to San Jose for the presidential inauguration. He heard from Colonel Ayorio, sorry, Ayora? I don't even know how you say that Victor Paz Estensoro, as a personal friend of Ferreras, something like that, had also been invited to the inauguration. San Ginés said that it would be interesting to talk to Paz. I asked WU slab/1 if there were any recent developments between his assistant and the Soviet embassy. During his absence, Mr. Peary, his assistant, received a telephone call from Katakov, the Soviet undersecretary, who asked that Peary send directly to him congressional reports on chemical warfare, USSR, US cultural exchanges, hearings on the United Nations, and these documents are being sent to Katakov. WU slab/1 remarked that the Soviets are always interested in the information assistants in his office and never the office director. They were interested in Manson, Thompson, and Peary and the plans. The next meeting will be on 28th of April at 1400. WU slab/1 goes to Baltimore on 29th of April to have his eyes checked. And this is Floyd B. McCauley. So I don't know who this WU slab is, but it's whatever cryptonym they gave the person. So this document is partially in Spanish and partially just illegible, but it has like 13 pages. I'll just probably skip through and look at a few things on it. I mean, this is just their cover sheet thing, and then I guess people who's handled the documents. Anyway, we've seen a lot of these docs, dispatch form, and then attached for addresses are copies of subject contact reports dated 11th of May, 14th of May, and 15th of May, 1963. And these are Chief of Base for Merida, I think, and Chief of Station Wave, and Chief WHD. This is also Chief of Station Mexico City contact report. Let's see. It says the night of 10th of May of 63, I met Li Tamil 9, the usual rendezvous point, and we drove to outlying district of city where debriefing took place. No security problems noted. Reported as follows: Manuel Vega Perez, maybe a Cuban G2 Mexico. What it looks like here, told L9 that he had been with Dolores something in Canada or Sanita, I don't know, and that De La Mora asked for L9. L9, of course, will take advantage of Vega remark to make contact with De La Mora. L9 commented that something Vega was with De La Mora. It's interesting. Let's see. Good grief, I'm starting to cough again. Okay. It says L9 commented that Sonoris was definitely waiting to make a contact with someone. Francisco Alberti, and then it says Spanish Cuban, who formerly tended the gate at the Cuban embassy in Mexico, returned to Mexico on 10th of May, 63. This time assigned to the embassy as auxiliary. I just, excuse me, the Sir Segura, I guess, a classy, whatever. Hill 9, something that Mays' wife is suffering from cancer, that she was operated on in Havana, but there is no hope. Like I said, some of these documents, it's just not real clear. Some of the stuff is kind of either jumbled together or the letters kind of run together. I've seen that on several of the documents. Mays told L9 that whatever this person is, Askew, was expected back in a week or so. May said that his wife would return after him. He added that Senora de Askew is anxious to return to Mexico. Let's see. Yeah, these, like I said, see, this page is not very well taken care of. I mean, it's kind of dark. It says L7 reported that the Gambino Fernandez, who was invited to attended something to and attended the Cuban Embassy Council on 19th of April 63, is married to a Cuban woman and has been to Cuba several times. L9 said that something Fernandez has a home near Acapulco where something Askew, I guess, has stayed on occasions. And then this may be either an article, because there's several pages of this, but it looks like it's in Spanish, and I don't read enough Spanish to make it worthwhile. Or these could be names too. Let's see. This page is not clear enough for me to sit there and try to read that. This too, something about Castro. Cuba does not need Castro. I said that this does not mean, oh, that Cuba does not need Castro. Said that Cuba is not like the Soviet Union, where the loss of Khrushchev would affect the regime. Cuba needs Castro, and he must be protected to avoid an assassination attempt, etc. That's interesting. See, this is more like names and whatever else this is. What I'll do is I'll just put them in the description, and then y'all can try to decipher it the best you can. because some of this I can't really tell what's happening. There's too many of these like notes. It says L9 reported that Satan Diallo, Quinon, something, arrived on Cubana. See that? I mean, that, I don't know. On 14th of May of 63, and he saw it too that the Diallo had not problems or had no problems at the airport. Diallo is the Guinean ambassador to the UN. Also, let's see, Cuban ambassador to the US was highly respected by all members of the UN, including the US, or maybe. And he said that Lechuga knew how to handle himself in the very complicated UN maneuvers. Anyway, that's the end of that one. This is 10 pages. I may have to come back to read this one. Let me look at, I can't remember. See, some of this might be a little bit harder to read. I may have to come back to do that one. This is just a list of names with a bunch of numbers next to it. This is 4 of 62. So POA canceled. And then you've got all the numbers and names here. That was one page. This one is pretty much about, I think, James Earl Ray or that Galt guy that we looked at yesterday. This is from, when was this one done? I thought I had a date on here. Guess not. Two copies referencing the photo sent APO 19th of April addressed to Pawson. Okay, this isn't the right one. And this one, priority no night action. This is from April 18th of 68. And this is to all basically the field offices. We've seen this before. Following information furnished by L.N. Ergo concerning suspect assassin of Martin Luther King Jr., named Eric Starvo Galt, alias Harvey Lohmeyer, alias John Willard, born 20th of July, 1931, height 5 feet 8 inches, and that's it. That's all that one is. We've seen that one before. This one is not very legible at all. Look at how the words run together. This had 3 pages of stuff. It sure would have been nice to know what it was, but the only thing I saw up here was something about Soviet at the very top. Soviet, maybe embassy. And that's about it. December 4th, 1961. This has 6 pages. Let me look at this. Oh, they've got a cryptonym. It says Hussey. That's what it looks like. San Jose, Costa Rica, and then Stephen L. Lebanoff. Lebanow. I don't know how you say that name. And then, so they're basically sending 1 copy of each of attachment to Guatemala, Mexico, and San Salvador, and then 2 copies to Washington. Let's see, the Guatemalan exile activities. Let's see, so high level, Central American exile, Costa Rica, San Jose, appraisal of content, documentary. On 14th of January 1959, Colonel Carlos Paz Tejada, under the alias something, wrote to Colonel Francisco Consenza Galvez in Costa Rica from San Salvador. The letter was addressed to the accommodation address, Justo Garcia something Apartado, which is used by Cosenza and is translated as follows. Although I've wanted very much to answer your letter of 7th of December 1950 something, many things have obstructed it, and so time has slipped by against my wish, so that I've been able to write you only today. In spite of the latest news, which you must be familiar with, I think that what happened is nothing but an incident natural to the trade. I really believe the crazy woman with whom we were dealing with was trying to negotiate and participate in the winnings, which there would be without much risk on his part. If the business failed for one reason or another, it does not signify anything more than a loss of time and some short range hopes, but not in an important manner. Far from that, something positive is being accomplished within a general line of forcing Maria Dolores to act in a manner which is good for us. I hope to continue in the activity, and I have exactly the patience of a spider repairing its net. Wait for a fly to fall into it. With relation to what you transcribed from Donna Taoa, Taoa or Teacher, I don't know. That is due to the fact that the fat one who was formerly so close to me has uh, something from me and has dedicated himself to the task of defaming me because he was unable to get something he wanted from me. Since he has nothing else to say, he says that I have very strange relations or that I belong to the comrades. As you will understand, this is nothing more than a disloyal means in which he is an expert. The friend who recently arrived from K1 Indio something can increase your information concerning this. I have already written to the good friends of me Morena so that he may explain if there is an opportunity, although she is really suffering a strong emotion in her actions, and I do not think she will recuperate. I have strengthened the connections with Rogue 10 or Roque, maybe, and other friends of the Finca Marina, I guess. I think that depending on how things appear, we should activate our requests and also contemplate now solutions to the large problem. I'm writing today to the farm, which is probably the CIA, to maintain a certainty of action and to see if the prevailing circumstances can be taken advantage of and given a purpose. I consider it extremely important that we maintain ourselves in closer correspondence than up to now. I understand that it is I who have failed to answer you, but I hope that the explanation of the events are sufficient. Failing to do so would be to fail to show interest and would even result in everything becoming cold and paralyzed for who knows how long. The big car wrote me very affectionately. I think that the problems that they cause each other are completely negative and that they cause us to deviate from the only road which should be followed. It's Colonel Ernesto Niederheitman, a reference to the planned revolt, which was discovered and destroyed by the Guatemalan government in December 1955, a code name for Guatemalan President Carlos Castillo Armas, Augusto Jornal McDonald, Major Marco Antonio Franco Chacon, or Chacon, uh, according to Humberto Gonzalez Juarez, there was a disagreement between Franco and Paz Tejeda, which resulted in Franco sure not of Paz dealing with Heider Heitman, with a communist, Humberto Gonzalez Juarez, El Salvador, Mexico, Colonel Adolfo Garcia, Montenegro, and then Guatemala, Juan Jose Arevalo. So wherever these numbers are, I don't know if we can see them. There's like numbers like a 7, an 8, a 10. Um, that's what this is referring to. I guess the fat man is referring to that president, a code name for Guatemalan President Carlos Castillo Armas. Or yeah, anyway. And then this is something. Not only is it very illegible, it's in Spanish. I don't read Spanish like that. I can understand certain things, but not this much Spanish. And then this one's hard to even read. Okay, and then here's another one, priority no night action. Let's see, does it have a date on this one? Okay, April 22nd, 1968. So this is all those field offices. And then desensitized, record copy, secret. Um, L in ergo fingerprint formula for James Earl Ray, 16 M over M, 9 over 4. Oh, okay. U over W. I don't even know what this means. Please pass to liaison has positively identified accused assassin as James Earl Ray. Okay. Whatever this means, this code here, I have no idea. I didn't even know this was such a thing when you're talking about fingerprints. But a fingerprint formula? Don't know. Never heard of that. Let's look and see what a fingerprint formula is. What is a fingerprint formula? It must be something specific. Okay, fingerprint formula. In fingerprint classification, specifically the Henry system, a formula or primary classification number is used to categorize fingerprints into groups based on the presence of whorls. It's essentially a fraction where the numerator represents the sum of values for fingers with whorls on even numbered fingers, and the denominator represents the sum of value for fingers with whorls on odd number fingers. So, math. Got it. Okay, cool. Anyway, I'm not doing all that. April 20th, 1968, Richard Ober. There's a secret document. Priority no night action. Okay. And then this is to all these different field offices. We've seen these, RIBAT and then WO News. It says request addresses, construct identikit composite of James Earl Ray for use prior receipt photos now en route. And then scar on forehead, mention reference omitted from composite as exact location not known. Left ear protrudes more than the right. So then that's Richard Ober. Let's go back to this one that's 10. Yeah, I don't want to read all this one. It's transmitted herewith, or one copy for each addressee of the contact reports prepared by Peter J. DeGervina concerning his first two meetings with AM Clock 1, report number New York Memorandum NYM 2233, deals with the meeting held 26th of September 1967. The report number 2, NYM 2234, deals with the meeting held 27th of September. Identity sheets for each of the two reports follow under separate cover enclosure to this dispatch. Contact reports of later meetings will follow by dispatch. And let me see, what date was this? Does it even have a date? I don't see one on here. So this is to the chief of WH Cuba, and then JM Wade, chief DOD. First two meetings. Let's see here. October 8th, 1967, AM Clock 1 file, Peter De Gravina, JM Wave meeting, AM Clock, okay, New York. AM Clock 1 arrived in New York on 19th of September, 1967. He's been given instructions to call a JM Wave operational number, identity A, next time he was out in a friendly country in order to receive contact instructions. When he failed to call soon after his arrival, it was decided to try to establish visual contact with him at HT Bast. Same as was done successfully in 1966 to move him to call for contact instructions. For that purpose, De Gravina was taken to HT Bast on 21st of September carrying a match folder from Identity B with his alias and room number. The plan was to make sure AM Clock 1 recognized the Gravina, who Garvino, who also met with him in 1966 and to pass the match folder to AM Clock 1. Only if this could be done securely, De Gravina was able to make definitive visual contact on 4 different occasions, once at Identity D, twice at Identity E, and a fourth time on the corridor between Identity D and B, or excuse me, D and F. AM Clock 1 quickly recognized the Gervino and tried to keep himself available for a possible contact. However, this was not possible, and the contacts on 21st September were limited to visual recognition only. Secretariat Building of the United States. Okay. I was trying to see what these little notes are. During this time, the operational number of the Beekman site, Identity G, was also, maybe it's identification, but whatever. We're just going to say identity. Was also manned in case AM Clock 1 had retained this number and attempted to call De Gravina there instead of JM Wave, but he failed to call either place for contact instructions. It was then decided to attempt to contact the agent again on 26th of September at HT Bass. While attempts are being made to locate AM Clock 1, the case officer surveilled the building where AM Clock 1 is staying and saw him go in by himself at 13:10 hours to leave his briefcase at 13:30 hours. AM Clock 1 left the building alone to go for lunch, and De Gervino followed him. AM Clock 1 recognized the case officer, and after exchanging safety signals, De Gervino passed the match folder to the agent while both were waiting on a crowded street corner for the red light to change, at which time AM Clock 1 told De Gervino that he had no way to contact him and would see him after lunch. Operation Chronology? Oh, excuse me, chronology. What in the world? This all ran together. Okay, on 26th of September, AM Clock 1 met De Gravino from 1500 to 1830, Identity B. AM Clock 1 appeared to be in good health and rested in high spirits. He was very glad to see Eli Gravino, or De Gravino, excuse me, again, and to be able to discuss things openly. He criticized bitterly the living conditions in P.B. Ruman, but does not seem to be affected by it or by the fact that he had to live under a regime he obviously hates. In fact, he seems quite sure of himself and plans to return to P.B. Ruman at the end of the HT Bass session. He is scheduled to remain in New York until December 1967, but may return to P.B. Ruman. before then for a short visit to look after his ailing mother and his wife, who had a baby girl 2 weeks prior to his departure. This may have influenced AM Clock 1 not to think about a possible defection at this time, which came as a surprise to the case officer, who expected the agent to have second thoughts about return to PB Rumen, where he is not happy. AM Clock 1 explained that he could not make contact as instructed because he had destroyed the phone number in both accommodation addresses we had given him for him to report from inside PB Rumen. He destroyed them in the toilet at the airport upon his arrival in PB Rumen in late December 1966, after observing a number of uniformed individuals at the airport, which he considered to be suspicious, although they had nothing to do with AM Clock 1. This may have been a convenient excuse for his failure to make contact as instructed, but D. Gravino did not press the issue. Instead, he was given the operational numbers of the Beekman site and of the base in New York, Identity I, maybe, and told he could always call there if he could not locate D. Gravino at Identity B. He was also given the JM Wave number for emergency contacts. AM Clock 1 said he tried to make contact by calling Identity J to inquire about Middahl, I guess in true name, but after much probing, he was told that Middahl was in, or Middo, I don't know, was in Washington and was given a phone number for him to call direct. AM Clock 1 was planning to call Washington at a later date if he had not been contacted. And then this is mission something of the United Nations. Let's see. We're just going to kind of scroll down. Let's see. In reference to his wife, AM Clock 1 stated that he is now convinced that she is totally against the AM thug regime. After their marriage in late 1966, he was not sure of her true political ideology, but during the past year, he has been able to confirm her disagreement on a number of occasions. He feels confident she would follow him in any movement against the regime, such as defection, but has not told her about his work for WO Facts. Let's see. Finances. Let's see what intelligence production says. Although most of the meeting was used to discuss operational matters, AM Clock 1 reported disseminable information on the following requirements given in Directorate 37960. Present attitude of the PB Rumen government towards the United States, expectation of a military attack on PB Rumen supported by the United States, formal military training being given to all PB Rumen Army officials, and then something about a base in New York. PB Rumen views regarding identities Q and something VO base. Afro, Asian, Latin, African peoples, something solidarity. Anyway, whatever this group name is, replacement of PB Rumen, ambassador to the USSR, and PB Rumen views regarding the Soviet ambassador PB Rumen. Main objective of the foreign policy of the AM thug regime being disseminated. And future plans. The next meeting was scheduled for the following day, 27th of September, for lunch at the Beekman sites. And these are all the identifications. Identities to NYM 2233. Okay, so you saw some of those identity, like identification or identity. Yeah. United Nations. This is for identities to UNDA 2234. Like I said, I'll just link these in the description. You can go in there and look them up and see if it's anything interesting. So you got all these identities. Because it's like a lot of like words. It's like, cool. Got it. Anyway, I'm gonna stop this one. I'll put all those in the description. You can go back and look at them yourself, read through line by line if you can. As like I said, some of them are hard to read, but that was part 14 of the JFK files. Anyway, I'll talk to y'all later. Have a good afternoon. Bye.